Hello everyone, welcome to Lesson Board. Well, in this video, I will be focusing on the reading techniques that are very handy on the SAT or on the ACT, right? So before I go ahead and discuss the reading techniques with you, let us quickly see the comparison between these two exams. All right, now if we notice, SAT allows us 65 minutes for 52 questions, whereas the ACT allows us 35 minutes for 40 questions, right? That means that on the ACT, our reading speed has to be much more than on the SAT, because if you look at the average, ACT gives us 52 seconds to solve or to answer one question on the reading section, as compared to SAT, which gives us 1 minute 15 seconds. Now, one thing that has to be kept in mind over here is that the reading section on the ACT is much more intense, because the passage is as long as the SAT passage, but the time that they give us is less. So on an average, we don't even have, I would say, 10 minutes for a passage on the reading section. We get close to 9 minutes, you can say. In the 9 minutes that we have to spend at least 3 to 3.5 minutes to read the passage, and then the balance time has to be spent on answering the questions perfectly. Since we have a paucity of time on the ACT, and now that it has even gone online, so it means that we have to read fast and get the passage, comprehend it nicely, and also be able to answer the questions accurately. Okay, so let's get going with that. Okay. So as I said, that reading has to be really fast, and also while we are reading, we need to absorb whatever we are reading. We can't just read or without understanding. Most of the times what happens is that there is a lot of regression that takes place. Regression as in, when we read the first 4 lines, we realize that we have not understood anything, and then we go back to the passage and we again reread those 4 lines. Okay, so that does not really help us, because the time is ticking and we are, as it is, running short of time. So we need these reading strategies to skim and skip. We cannot read the entire passage word by word. We don't have that much of time. We don't have that luxury. So we have to skim, we have to skip the entire passage and try to understand the important information that is given to us. Just keep that in mind and then go ahead to answer the questions. So how do we skim and how do we skip? The first point, pay attention to essential clauses. Now, always remember that the word that is very crucial. Okay, whatever comes after the word that is very important. The author believes that. It was found that. So if you notice, whatever is coming after the word that is very crucial. So pay attention to these essential clauses, pay attention to the word that, and pay attention to the information that follows the word that, because that can be really very crucial information. Okay, let's get going with the second point. Pay special attention to transition words. Now, what are these transition words and why are they so important? So first, let's see the transition words. So, but, however, yet, although, okay? All these words, they signal a U-turn. Now, what do I mean by a U-turn? Now, let's imagine a situation. Let's imagine that the author is trying to say or to convey the message to us that Cold War was disastrous for the global economy. All right. So he will directly not come to his main point and say that Cold War was disastrous for the global economy. So what he will do, he will first speak about Cold War in a very general way. Okay. So he will first talk about the topic, that is Cold War, and he might just start off the passage in this way. So he will say, at the end of the Cold War, it was widely believed that Cold War was good for the global economy. Now, mind it, he is not talking about his main point. He is just introducing the topic, and he is saying the opposite of what he actually has to say. So he is saying that Cold War was good for the global economy. And when he says that, then he goes on to elaborate as to why people thought it was good or why it was believed so. Okay, so he'll elaborate on that for in like another 2 or 3 sentences, and then when he wants to come to his main point, that is Cold War was disastrous. So he will transition from the previous idea to his own idea by using these very words. So he might use but or however. So he will say, however, it has been recently proved that Cold War was disastrous for the global economy. Okay, so here you go. So that is how the author is actually trying to take you from a general perspective to his own perspective, from an idea which is just introducing the topic to his main idea in the passage, which is the central idea of the passage. Okay, so this is how the author will take a U-turn by using these very words, but, however, yet, although. All these words are basically contradictors. They are contradictory transition words, and they signal that the author is making a shift from one idea to the other. Therefore, these words are very crucial. Okay. Now, second one, and also, for example, in fact, these words signal that we must keep moving straight. Okay, what does that mean? So, if an author is already talking about an idea and he is simply elaborating or building more on that same idea, he will use these words like and, also, for example, in fact. And these words are not so important because the author is simply elaborating on the idea that has already been stated by him previously. So you don't really have to pay attention to these transitions, because when you look at them, you know, okay, the author is simply trying to elaborate more and more. Okay, so you know the idea. So you will go fast through these sentences, at least, which have, excuse me, which start with these words. Okay. The third one is, or are words like therefore, thus, so, hence. You know, these words are also important because they establish a cause and effect relationship. So when the author is trying to express an idea and wants to give a reason to that, he may use these words. Okay, so these words become very important as far as reading is concerned. So whatever comes after these words is basically a conclusion, maybe, that the author is trying to draw, or maybe some information, or maybe a reason that he's trying to give to what he has stated earlier. So please remember that these transition words are extremely crucial from the reading perspective, especially when it comes to contradictors such as but, however, yet, although, despite, instead, there are many more, and the cause and effect transitions like therefore, thus, so, hence. So all these words are extremely crucial. Let's go to the third point. It says, never ignore extreme words in the passage. Please underline them. Now, on the ACT, now you cannot underline them, but when it comes to SAT, you should underline them. Now, what are these extreme words? These extreme words are always, only, never, best. Whenever you come across these words, okay, you always have to pay special attention to them, because these words signal towards the attitude of the author. If the author is saying that this is the only way to do it, then you know that the author is taking an extreme stand, and he feels that there is no other way to do it, right? So you know that these words are expressing the attitude of the author. This is the best way to do it. So you know that the author is having, again, an extreme stand on his choices. So you know what the author is exactly trying to say over there. So it expresses his attitude, okay, and to some extent his tone as well. All right. So even there's one more word like impossible. If the author says this is impossible, then you know that the author, if anyone comes and tells the author that this can be done, he will simply, take a very strong stand there and say, no, it is impossible to do it. All right. Next point. The presence of these very words in the answer options signals elimination. Now, when I'm talking about these extreme words like never, always, best, impossible, only, all these words, they are signaling, when they come in the options, they signal elimination, because an answer option is usually not extreme. Remember that. An answer option is usually not extreme. Any answer option having any extreme word in it, you can simply eliminate that. okay, based on that extreme word which is there. Okay. You may ignore similes, analogies, metaphors. Any kind of comparison made by the author in the passage is not so important. So you can simply skip through, or maybe skim through them, and I mean, you really not don't have to read them word by word to understand the kind of comparison that the author is trying to draw. All you know is that the author is drawing a comparison, and if any option requires you, or any question rather requires you to come back to that line, so you know where it is. Okay, so you can also just underline that comparison and make an annotation there by saying that, okay, by just marking a C over there. C stands for a comparison. Okay, so you can do that also. Pay close attention to the time periods in the 17th century, nowadays, now, today, in recent times, in the year so and so, etc. Why are these time periods so important? So just like those transition words were important, these time periods are also equally important, because the author may again try to start off by saying that back in the day, or early in the 19th century, or in the 17th century, it was widely believed. So you know that the author is trying to draw a comparison between two time periods. Earlier, this was the thought process. Now it is this. Okay, earlier people believed this. Now studies have shown this. So then and now, these kind of time comparisons are very crucial. So you know exactly what the author is trying to do, or what he is trying to say. Okay, so these are some reading strategies to quickly skim and skip. You should use them effectively in order to go through your passage and in order to save some time. If you can do that, you are on the right track. Okay, now we'll go to some option elimination techniques. Okay, now these option elimination techniques are very interesting, as in you can easily use them to get to the right answer very fast. Okay, now, or rather I should say, the best answer and not the right answer. Oh, we'll discuss about that in a while. Okay, so the first option elimination technique that we have in mind is off topic. So anything that's off topic would be incorrect. Okay, for example, if the author is talking about pollution, okay, let's say he's talking about pollution in the US and ways to control pollution. Maybe he's talking about various ways in the passage to control pollution. So a topic is basically a word or a phrase comprising of two words, maybe. So in other words, I can say one or two words, okay, that the author uses repeatedly throughout the passage. Okay, so you can just think of this. You and your friend have taken an exam, and you're standing outside after the exam gets over, you're standing outside the exam hall. Your friend comes up to you and he asks you, how was that passage? So what will you say? Which passage? You've done like 4 or 5 passages there. So which passage? And then he will say, that pollution passage. So when he says that pollution passage, instantly the entire passage comes to your mind, because the word pollution was mentioned throughout that passage repeatedly. Okay, so that is exactly how you are going to identify the topic of the passage. Once you know the topic, it's very easy to eliminate any answer option based on off topic. So any answer option will usually have the name of the topic in it. So if the passage is talking about pollution and ways to effectively control pollution, you cannot have an option that just talks about one way to control pollution. For example, you cannot have something like more and more trees should be grown in the region. Okay, because that is not what the author is trying to say. That is just a supporting detail that the author has used maybe in the passage. Okay, it is not talking about pollution in general. It is talking about the number of trees. It says that more and more trees should be grown in the region. If more and more trees should be grown in the region, that's okay. That's one point maybe that the author has stated somewhere in the passage, but that does not mean that it can be the right answer, because nowhere it talks about pollution. Yeah. So always keep this in mind. These are the pitfalls, and this is how the passage will confuse you. Too broad, too narrow. Anything that's too broad or too narrow will invariably be incorrect. Okay, for example, if the passage is talking about pollution in the United States of America, and they say that, and the option talks about pollution in all the Western countries, then that would be too broad, right? or if the author is talking about pollution in, let me say, the United States of America, and the option talks about pollution in Washington, D.C., again, that would be too narrow, all right? Or in other words, or if I say the passage is talking about noise pollution specifically, and the option talks about pollution in general, again, that would be too broad. Okay, so always keep this in mind. Please pay attention to the keywords in the option, and based on those keywords, you have to eliminate the option. You will always go by the elimination process. It's always advisable and prudent to use the elimination process, and these are the techniques that you will be using there. Positive, negative. Now, when I say positive, negative, when we read the passage, we exactly understand what the attitude of the author is towards that. Okay, if the author is having a very, very positive attitude towards the topic, then the answer option can never be negative. Or if the passage is a negative, if the attitude of the author is negative, then the answer option can never be positive. For example, if the passage is talking about pollution and ways to control pollution, then definitely the tone of the author can never be too positive, because he is talking about pollution. Pollution by itself is something negative, right? So he will probably not appreciate the fact that pollution is rising, and so he will be critical towards that fact that pollution is on the rise. So his tone or attitude can be considered as negative in that passage. Definitely, the answer option that we will be having has to have a negative keyword in it if it is testing the attitude of the author, okay, towards pollution. So always keep that in mind. Alien word, go for word match. Any answer option that has a word given which is nowhere mentioned in the passage, the answer to it will always, or that option will always be incorrect. Okay, so let me say that the passage was talking about pollution in the US and how we can control pollution, the ways to control pollution. Okay, now an answer option gives you that the health of people is on a decline due to pollution. Well, the passage probably did not even speak about the health of people. Okay, the passage was talking about ways to control pollution. Now you cannot assume that since there was pollution, all right, so because of pollution people fell sick, and then you cannot have further assumptions to it. Also, when there is no comparison given in the passage, okay, and in the answer option you have a comparison given. For example, pollution, the author is comparing, or he is not comparing, he's just discussing the pollution levels in the US and in the UK in the passage. So he might just say that the US has done a fantastic job in controlling pollution, whereas UK is still struggling with it. Okay, it does not mean that the pollution levels in UK are more than in the US. Okay, so we cannot come to that, we cannot infer that, we cannot assume that. So if an answer option gives you that the pollution levels in UK are more than in the US, any sort of comparison, such a comparison has to be critically looked into. It is not necessary, and therefore it will always be incorrect, because anything of that sort was never given to us in the passage. It was just speaking generally about the pollution levels in both the countries, but not comparing that which country has more or which country has less. Okay, so next one, okay. Factually incorrect. Now this is a very crucial technique. Any option that has any information which is nowhere given in the passage falls under this. Sounds simple, right? Okay, it is not so simple, because they might actually trick you. So they might say, in the year 1960, pollution levels in the US rose to as high as, let's say, 500 units. Okay, and in the answer option, you have pollution levels in the US in the year rose as high as 500 units in the year 1965. Anything like that will get you into trouble, because you will remember the units. You may not really remember the exact year that they were talking about in the passage. So be very careful of that. Okay. Any answer option, this I think we discussed earlier also, any answer option that's extreme will usually be wrong. Okay. Now, in short, simply stick to the passage. You have to simply stick to the information that's given in the passage, and you cannot assume too much. If you assume too much, okay, then you probably might get it just wrong. So you have to stick to the passage and just remain within the periphery of the information that has been presented to you in the passage. Nothing from outside. Okay, no assumptions. Remember that, guys. Okay, do not look for the right answer. As I said earlier, that we have to go with the elimination process. So when we are doing the elimination process, we can't be looking for the right answer. We have to look for the best answer. Now, what is this? When we are looking at an option and thinking, is this option right? Okay, a brain will usually tell us, yes, it looks right. Option B, does it look right? Yes, this also looks right. But when you're looking at an option with a critical viewpoint, okay, you know that, okay, there is not, I mean, only one option is right. So how can I eliminate the other options? And remember, there will be times when you might feel that all the four options are incorrect, okay? But then which option is the best option is what you need to consider. All right, so always keep this in mind. If you have any questions to this, please feel free to post it in the comment box below. Okay. And thank you for watching this video, guys. I hope this was of some help to you. Please visit our website. It is www.lessonboard.in, or visit our Facebook page, Instagram page, LinkedIn page, and do subscribe to our channel on YouTube. Okay, I keep uploading videos like these, and I think those will be of some help to you guys. Okay, so thank you so much. If you have any questions, please feel free to post them in the comment box. Thank you so much.